What if number 2? You guys really seem to like the first one. What if Izuku had his father's quirk? So I figured I'd do a few more. And to decide, I did a poll on the community section of my YouTube. The top 2 things that were voted for was what if Toga was good and what if Izuku fell into Black Clover. Toga being good, you're watching right now, and obviously I'm still working on the Black Clover one. For this what if, I'll be playing around with things just a little bit just so I can make it work. As you guys know, there have been some recent information about Toga Himiko that's come out in the manga. So I'll be taking that into account as well. Thank you guys, and I hope you enjoy. On a rainy day, the type that just dampens your very soul, a young girl is lost. Lost in her own head. Toga Himiko sitting there in the rain, grasping her head, trying to figure out what's going on with her. She can feel her sanity slipping. She starts crying and laughing and crying and laughing. She feels so conflicted. Her mask of forced normality is starting to chip away. Due to her quirk, Toga Himiko had not only a fascination with blood, but an infatuation with it. People saw this as not normal and berated Toga for this. It wasn't her fault, so why did everyone hate her because of it? They would tell her nothing but she's just a villain in the making, and look at her with disgust and fear. This made Toga desire to be normal. She would look as she screamed and cried, not sure how or what to do. She can't help the way she was born, and as the rain came down onto her crying face, suddenly it would stop. Something was blocking out the rain above her. Toga would look up and see a young man with green hair holding an umbrella over her. He would ask, "Hey, do you mind if I sit down next to you?" Toga wouldn't object to this, but she wouldn't speak out about it either. Thus, the young man would sit next to her. "What's the matter? You seem really upset," he asked. Toga, somewhat scoffing him off, replies, "Why does it matter? It doesn't help you meddling with me." Izuku responding with a smile and a happy tone. "Someone wise told me that meddling where you aren't needed is the true essence of being a hero. So, come on, talk to me. What's wrong?" Toga, being hesitant at first, wouldn't say anything. She would eventually chime in saying, "My quirk isn't something exactly normal. It involves hurting other people. And there's just so much pressure on me, I don't know how to handle it." Izuku would then ask her about what her quirk was. "If I drink someone's blood, I can turn into them. I know it's terror." Being cut off by Izuku with a cheerful tone. "Wow, that's amazing!" Toga, somewhat flustered and has an expression of shock and a light blush on her cheeks, not sure how to respond. Izuku would continue saying, "When I was a kid, I thought for a long time I didn't have a quirk, so I spent a lot of time watching others. So believe me when I say, yours is an amazing quirk." Izuku, knowing that he can't divulge the secret of One for All, let alone tell anybody before he actually gets it, remains silent about what his quirk is. With a smile that could melt the heart of any ice, Izuku would say, "Don't be ashamed of it, it's part of you. I'm sure you could be a great hero." And the voices that were playing in Toga Himiko's mind were suddenly silent. The only voice she heard for the first time in a long time was her own. Izuku would then hand the umbrella to her, gather his things, and gets up to leave. Toga Himiko, finally realizing what's going on around her, responds, "Hey, wait, take your umbrella." Izuku, still smiling, replies, "Oh, don't worry, I'll be fine, so keep it. I have to get ready for the UA test soon, so I really need to go." Toga, willingly taking the umbrella now, asks him what his name was, and Izuku replies, Izuku Midoriya. Replying to him, Toga gives him her name, Toga Himiko. Izuku would then dash off home. And as he left, Toga was there in the rain. She held onto the umbrella, smiling. Izuku didn't know he had just saved someone for the first time. She looks down, speaking to herself. Hero, huh? If I become one, will I get to see him again? Skip forward a few months to the end of Izuku's training with All Might and his preparations to take on the UA test. Izuku would walk up to the gate, still nervous, and the whole Bakugo scaring him, and him tripping over a rock to be saved by Ochako from falling, and the conversations afterwards would go as normal. What would change is after Ochako leaves Izuku, Izuku would go to leave but is stopped by a familiar voice calling out to him. He spins around to see Toga Himiko running up to him. It takes him a minute to remember who she is, but then when he does, he's like, "Wait, Toga?" Toga's eyes would light up as an uncontrollable grin creeps across her face from sheer joy. Toga, as happy as can be, says to him, "I'm so glad you remember me. I knew if I came here I'd get to see you again." Izuku, somewhat flattered by that statement, strikes up a conversation. "Wow, I'm honestly surprised. What made you decide to become a hero?" Toga quickly replies with a wink and a hush-hush, somewhat flirty tone of, "That's a secret, silly. You don't get to know yet. Now come on, let's get going before we miss it." Then, dragging Izuku, she would run off into the seminar. President would explain the test, and Ida would still stand like the classic "Ida boy" meme he is, and would still call out Izuku for muttering, but would quickly flinch and sit back down, noticing the intense death glare coming from Toga, who is sitting right next to Deck. After that, they would gather at the gate to the test. Initially, I thought Toga would be joined at the hip to Izuku, but after some thought, I think Toga would actually go to talk to some of the other students, so she can learn about them and their quirks. After her conversation with Izuku months ago, she developed a love of learning about quirks. Not the same analytical standpoint as Izuku on it, she does it in a somewhat different way, but I'll save that for later. From here, the test would proceed as per normal, with the added factor Toga is here, but you guys are wondering how Toga takes out the bots. Well, I think Toga would develop a fascination with knives, not the sadistic standpoint like in the original timeline, but instead from more of a combat aspect, since throwing knives are light and easy to use, and combat knives are easy to maneuver. Toga would be flipping over the robots, dodging, twisting, and ducking. Basically, she would be relying on a very acrobatic style of combat. Izuku would struggle to find bots to destroy and gather points until the zero-pointer appears. Ochako being caught under the rubble, everyone runs away and Izuku would be scared like before and too hesitant to move, but someone would not be. Toga. Toga would rush in to aid Ochako and tried to lift the rubble off of her to no avail. Izuku, seeing the kind girl who saved him from falling and his new friend Toga, would be much quicker to act, almost instinctually. He would launch himself into the air like a green shooting star, and the two girls would look up as he flies overhead. Seeing this, Izuku clenching his butt cheeks and yelling from the bottom of his soul, "Detroit! Smash!" Cleaving the robot's head, landing and exploding down its body. Izuku himself would begin to fall. He prepares for the impact and gets ready to use a Detroit Smash like in the original timeline to soften the blow. Instead, though, he's caught by Toga and Ochako, who react fast to Izuku falling. Ochako uses her quirk to make Toga float, and Toga uses her acrobatic skills to maneuver in the air to catch Izuku. And this would, well, be a somewhat safer landing, and no smack or rainbow bark. Medical skill heal Izuku's wounds, and things would proceed as per normal. All Might would be impressed, not just by Izuku, but also by Toga and her willingness to rush in and help. He would also be impressed by her and Ochako's quick thinking to save Izuku from hitting the ground.
These three may become great heroes in the future.
Skip forward to later that night. Izuku is eating dinner with his mother as his letter arrives. As Izuku takes it to his room and opens it, expecting to have failed, All Might goes on with the speech that he did in the original video. All this would be mostly the same except for one slight alteration from the original timeline. Instead of Ochako approaching present Mike after this, Ochako and Toga both do. Ochako, sounding somewhat upset that Izuku earned no points for destroying the 0 pointer, would offer up her points. Give him some of my points. I can spare enough for him to pass. He saved us and failed because he didn't have enough time to destroy any other bots to get points. Present Mike then would respond that they can't exactly do that. Then Toga would chime in with a much harsher tone than Ochako did. Then give him my spot! It's his dream to be a hero, and I won't let him fail just because he wanted to save us. All Might would end the video in the very same fashion as he did in the original timeline, with a "Come young Midoriya, this is your Hero Academia," and with tears in his eyes, he hears his doorbell ring. He would go to the hall as his mother opens up the door to see the two girls, Toga and Ochako. Toga had convinced Ochako to go with her to check up on Izuku, and upon seeing them, Izuku would cry even more as he hugs these two. Two students, no, two friends who offered up their spots so he could have his dream. It touched his heart. Izuku hugs them and they both hug him back with tears in his eyes, tears of sheer gratitude. And that's where I think I'm gonna leave this what if. I'll leave a poll up in the upper right hand corner for you guys to vote on something. Do you guys think that Ochako and Toga would become really good friends in this timeline? Or do you think that they would both develop an infatuation for Izuku and become more or less rivals? Or perhaps they would become friends and rivals in a way. Let me know what you guys thought of this what if down below. I'll see you guys. I'm out. Bye!